Hello and welcome to Brain Power. I'm your host Thomas Trombley, and we'll be discussing topics ranging from current news, world events, and religion. Basically, whatever bit of news that catches my eye. If you have a story you'd like covered here, or a question you'd like answered, send me a message on Twitter at BrainPowerUp. Use the hashtag BrainPowerUp, like the group at facebook.com/BrainPowerOnline, or visit the website at brainpoweronline.webs.com. Today is Sunday, July 26th, and, well, as usual, we got a selection of stories here. This one here was a couple days ago. There was a wildfire in Idaho, which is it's really kind of funny when you find out how that fire was started. Pooping in the wilderness is something Smokey the Bear probably wouldn't have had that big of a problem with. But burning your toilet paper afterward is a different story. The Bureau of Land Management says a mountain biker in Idaho started a 73-acre blaze in the Boise foothills on Wednesday afternoon after setting his toilet paper alight following a rest stop in a ravine. Fire officials say the man thought he was doing the right thing, but an ember set some dry grass on fire, and the blaze, dubbed the Whole Fire, quickly spread out of control. It was contained roughly 6.5 hours later. I guess when you gotta go, you gotta go, BLM spokeswoman Carrie Bilbao tells KTVB, though she stresses that burning toilet paper in dry conditions is a very bad idea. The agency advises people to bury human waste or remove it under the pack it in, pack it out policy. The man who came forward yesterday and was handed a citation for starting the fire, that's usually accompanied by a $250 fine, may also have to pay the full cost of putting it out, which the Idaho Statesman reports could be in the thousands, to cover the helicopters, air tankers, and ground crews that stopped the blaze from spreading to neighborhoods. Bilbao tells the Statesman a toilet paper-related fire has occurred on BLM land at least once before. Once again, it's kind of funny when you think about it, but kind of sad too, because that's a huge fire, and it all started because some guy wiped his butt. Personally, I'd never even heard the idea of burning your toilet paper. I've always thought, if you're going to go out camping and you're bringing toilet paper with you, you're supposed to get the biodegradable stuff, stuff you can just throw on the ground, whatever, and it'll just break apart. But I guess I don't know. I don't go camping that often. I don't know. Anyway, on a completely different note, on a more civilized side of things, European movie studios are kind of upset about American movie studios. The European Union has launched an antitrust case against 6 major U.S. movie studios, including Disney and Warner Brothers, and British satellite broadcaster Sky UK for restricting access across the 28-country bloc. In a statement today, the Executive Commission, which assesses antitrust matters for the EU, said it had sent a statement of objections to NBC Universal, Paramount Pictures, Sony, and 20th Century Fox, as well as Disney, Warner Brothers, and Sky UK, regarding contractual restrictions that prevent Sky offering their full services to consumers beyond Britain and Ireland. European consumers want to watch the pay TV channels of their choice regardless of where they live or travel in the EU. EU Commissioner Margrethe Vestager said, "Our investigation shows that they cannot do this today." The Commission opened a probe into the 7 companies and their territorial contracts in January 2014 and found clauses requiring Sky UK to block access to films through its online or satellite pay TV services to consumers outside Britain and Ireland, so-called geo-blocking. It also found that some contracts required studios to prevent their services being made available in the two countries to others than Sky, another potential restrictive practice. Licensing agreements between the major film studios and Sky UK do not allow consumers in other EU countries to access Sky's UK and Irish pay TV services via satellite or online. Vestager said, "We believe this may be in breach of EU competition rules." And that's another one of those things. We are kind of moving towards. We are always constantly moving more towards a more global economy, a more just a global approach to things. There's really no reason why, if you're in, let's say Monaco, whatever, you're in Monaco, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to watch British TV if you want. You should be able to watch American TV. You should be able to watch Chinese TV, whatever. I can understand it if it's not like advertised out there. For example, it's a British satellite service that they're going on about. They're probably not advertising this British TV service in Russia, for example, but if somebody happens to want it, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to get a satellite dish, point it at the satellite, and pick up the channels. But once again, that's just my opinion. I don't know. What do I know? Speaking of television, something that was kind of weird. Now, personally, I have no interest in this whatsoever. I haven't followed wrestling since I must have been 5 or 6 years old. But it's still a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there are some things about it that there are certain names where everybody knows their names, whether you watch it or not. Everybody knows John Cena. Everybody knows Randy Savage. Everybody knows Hulk Hogan. Well, according to some recent problems, Hulk Hogan's not going to be a part of the listing anymore. A tweet posted last night by Hulk Hogan seemed to portend serious news. "In the storm, I release control. God and his universe will sail me where he wants me to be. One love, HH." Pardon. That news was revealed by a WWE statement issued this morning per Sports Illustrated that said, WWE terminated its contract with Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan. WWE is committed to embracing and celebrating individuals from all backgrounds as demonstrated by the diversity of our employees, performers, and fans worldwide. The WWE hasn't commented on why it disappeared Hogan from the WWE Hall of Fame page, removed his merch from the WWE shop, and unlisted him as a judge from its Tough Enough reality show, per Wrestling News Source. But Hogan himself is now apologizing for offensive language during a conversation from 8 years ago, per a statement given to People. That conversation is believed to have been caught on a sex tape at the center of Hogan's $100 million lawsuit against Gawker Media. Radar says in a joint probe with the National Enquirer, yeah, because, if it's in the Enquirer, it must be true. Anyway, Radar says in a joint probe with the National Enquirer that 5 independent sources revealed lines from a racist diatribe about his daughter, Brooke. Among Hogan's alleged lines, if she was going to F some I think we can all guess what language they're using there. I'd rather have her marry an 8-foot-tall N-er worth $100 million, like a basketball player. I guess we're all a little racist. Radar says the explosive transcripts of his comments are sealed in a Florida court. It was unacceptable for me to have used that offensive language. There is no excuse for it, and I apologize for having done it, Hogan says in the statement. This is not who I am. I am disappointed with myself that I used language that is offensive and inconsistent with my own beliefs. Meanwhile, his lawyer tells People that Hogan wasn't fired from the WWE, but resigned because he didn't want to put them or his family through this. Which, let's be honest. I mean, he's he's from a different time, kind of. We've all heard older people say things that, really don't fly too well in modern society. Things like, if my daughter's going to marry an Enner, I'd rather have her marry a big Enner that's worth a lot of money. But no, things like that, those are not excusable, I will say that. There is no excuse for it. But it is kind of understandable that somebody would have opinions like that. Once again, I was never a fan of wrestling personally, so this doesn't affect me one way or the other, but everybody knows the name Hulk Hogan. I mean, his name is absolutely synonymous with wrestling. It's also synonymous with really, really crappy movies in the late 80s, too, but, that's neither here nor there. Moving on. Now, here's another thing that kind of shocked me. I didn't know this. I would have never guessed it. It blew my mind. Now, if you were to think of what the most American state is, I mean, try to think from an outsider's perspective. Think America. And what do you picture? You probably picture, like, Texas. A bunch of cowboys line dancing and sitting in bars drinking whiskey. Or you picture New York City, or you picture Los Angeles, or Chicago, whatever. I mean, those are the kinds of mental images that come up when people say America. But apparently none of those are the most American state. America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. But people from Iowa are a little more free and a little braver than the rest of us, apparently. In what the Des Moines Register calls a totally unscientific study, E. Stately ranks the 50 states on Americanness. It used 8 indicators that represent the uniqueness of the good old USA to arrive at its conclusion. Each state's number of bald eagles, guns, astronauts, fast food restaurants, MLB players, and Olympic gold medals won. Facebook interest in the United States of America among residents, and Google searches for Bin Laden dead. Most of those figures were considered per capita, per square mile, or as a percentage. The top 10 most American states. Number 10, Mississippi. Number 9 is Missouri. Number 8 is Arkansas. Number 7 is Oklahoma. Number 6 is Illinois. Number 5 is South Dakota. Number 4 is Alabama. Number 3 is West Virginia. Number 2 is Ohio. And number 1, completely shockingly, was Iowa. Iowa. It's sad part is I've lived in Minnesota pretty much my whole life. And Iowa is directly beneath Minnesota. And there are times where I even forget about Iowa. I forget that it's even a state. I forget that it's even there. There's nothing to do. There is nothing in Iowa. It's flat fields, as far as the eye can see. But whatever. Apparently they're the most American, though. Anyway. I was really hoping to avoid the Donald again, but I'm beginning to think that At least until the election, or at least until he's kicked out of the election, uh, I don't think there's going to be any way to avoid Trump. Uh, Trump is running with a large number of his fellow Republicans, but he's not only pissing off Democrats and independents and libertarians and such. He's pissing off his own party. He may be a feckless blowhard, but Donald Trump sure knows how to generate headlines. Today, Trump went after fellow candidate Lindsey Graham in the senator's home state of South Carolina, accusing him in a speech of being an idiot, and then rattling off Graham's personal phone number, reports The Hill. It was the real deal because Politico tried it and Graham answered. When it comes to the Donald, nothing surprises me anymore, said Graham, who had called Trump a jackass yesterday over his John McCain insult. Trump said Graham himself had given him the number a few years ago while begging him for a reference to appear on Fox News. Both stories use the word rambling to describe Trump's speech. As for that earlier McCain dig, USA Today notes that Trump semi-apologized for it well on Fox the other day. Certainly, if there was a misunderstanding, I would totally take that back, he said. He told to Bill O'Reilly, adding that he does think that McCain is a hero. Okay. Like I said, Trump is pissing off his own party here. Here's another good story about the Donald. Donald Trump says he's not a Washington insider, which is why the GOP is treating him so badly, and why he'll entertain a third-party run, he tells The Hill. So many people want me to. If I don't win the GOP nomination, he said during the 40-minute conversation in Manhattan's Trump Tower, I'll have to see how I'm being treated by the Republicans. Absolutely. If they're not fair, that would be a factor. Ostensibly among his beefs are being taken to task by RNC chief Reince Priebus for his recent immigration comments, as well as GOP pushback for insinuating that Senator John McCain is not a war hero. The RNC has not been supportive, he continued. They were always supportive when I was a contributor. I was their fair-haired boy. The RNC has been, I think, very foolish. As for his outsider status, I'm not in the gang. I'm not in the group where the group does whatever it's supposed to do. I want to do what's right for the country, not what's good for special interest groups. Other nuggets on his plans if he becomes number 45. He'd appoint Supreme Court judges with a conservative bent, support congressional term limits, and work closely with China because, quote, they love Trump, end quote. He didn't say much about upcoming GOP debates other than, these politicians debate every night. That's all they do. That's all they do is talk. I don't do that. I'm a job creator. But despite citing his high polling numbers, Trump said it would be presumptuous to declare his nomination in the bag. It's... And of course, if you're feeling left out of Trump's line of fire, you can actually get your own personalized insults from Donald Trump. You haven't arrived until you've been insulted personally by Donald Trump. And now Mother Jones is making it possible. Sort of. Through a Trump insult generator. You plug in your name, and soon you'll be the target of slams like this one. Unimportant reader is a fraud. Fading out fast. Make America great again. It won't give out your personal phone number, though, but still, I'll actually post a link on the site, on brainpoweronline.webs.com. I'll post the link for the Trump generator, but just rattling it out, I decided I figured I'd try it, so I got a few examples here. Thomas. A no-good, rotten traitor is always hitting me politically. Ignore. Make America great again. Unimportant Thomas came to my office looking for money, A total loser. Who cares? Little Thomas was not born with much of a brain, but nobody beats Trump. What a stiff, what a stiff. I've totally been warning about Thomas since as early as the 80s. Thomas is a fool, a total loser. Save our children and their future. Stupid Thomas is truly dumb as a rock. Average talent who's out of touch with reality. Like at Rosie O'Donnell, a total loser. Liberal clown Thomas calls me a jackass. Who cares? Remember, Univision apologized. Those are just some examples of it, and those were just the best ones that I found anyway. Yeah. So moving on, here's another thing that's kind of odd: the fact that there are still some people who need to be told, don't touch wild animals, don't pick them up, don't pet them, don't try to be their friends. They're called wild animals for a reason, 'cause they're fucking wild! Anyway, in Florida, armadillos are spreading a very disturbing disease. A spike in cases of one of history's most feared diseases has been blamed on a less than terrifying animal, the armadillo. Florida has seen 9 leprosy cases so far this year, compared to as few as 2 in a typical year, and health officials believe the increase in cases has been caused by human contact with armadillos, CNN reports. Armadillos harbor the bacteria that causes leprosy, and researchers determined a few years ago that they can spread it to humans, though it would probably take repeated contact. The disease is a lot more treatable than it was in the days of leper colonies, but authorities have urged Floridians to stay away from the animals to be on the safe side. Generally, you don't want to be playing with wild animals anyway, a state health department spokeswoman tells USA Today. Armadillos are shy, nocturnal creatures found in much of the U.S., and the president-elect of the Duval County Medical Society tells CNN there's a reason why the rise in leprosy cases is happening in Florida. New homes are being developed, and we're tearing down armadillos' homes in the process. Now these creatures are coming out in the daytime, and the people who are getting exposed are those working outside. It's once again, it's granted, armadillos are, like I said, kind of not very fearsome, but you don't have to be a genius to figure out. Once again, it's a wild animal. You don't know what's going to happen. You shouldn't be playing with wild animals. Anyway, moving along on that same basic kind of topic, for those still operating under the at times very misguided notion that beavers are just busy little critters with eccentric tails, KBND reports that 2 men hiking along Oregon's Deschutes River this week. The story is actually a month old, but still. So KBND reports that 2 men hiking along Oregon's Deschutes River a month ago came upon a beaver dam and decided to explore, ending in both being hospitalized after a resident beaver emerged to defend its territory. Clayton Mitchell, 23, told cops the beaver knocked him into the water, while 31-year-old friend John Bailey became entangled in logs. Mitchell called for help, which arrived just as Bailey freed himself. I was just getting off shift when the report came in, and I didn't believe it, a Deschutes County Sheriff's Department representative tells Reuters, which calls the attack virtually unprecedented in the area. I'm a city boy from the East Coast, and every day in Deschutes County I learn something new. This time I learned, don't mess with a beaver. Both men's injuries were considered non-life-threatening. It's... Once again, it's... If you see a beaver dam, don't go anywhere near it. You are asking for trouble when you mess with wild animals. It's It's like those people that have seen far too many Disney movies and they think they can just go into the woods and walk up to a deer and start petting it. You know, things. No, you're going to get messed up if you try that. You know, but, you know, whatever. What do I know, right? Anyway, moving on. Oh, here's kind of an interesting story. For everybody that remembers the Super Bowl this year, it was a little. There was some controversy over this year's Super Bowl. One of the famously underinflated footballs used by Tom Brady and the New England Patriots in their march to this year's Super Bowl victory sold at auction yesterday, and ESPN reports that its value was anything but flat at $43,740. The ball, the only one from the now infamous playoff game versus the Indianapolis Colts to make its way to a public sale so far, fell short of the $100,000 auctioneer Lelands.com thought it could get, but is nonetheless probably the priciest game ball out there. The buyer, notes the New York Post, was not named. Wow. You know, I find it kind of sad because maybe once every quarter or so, there's an open mic stand-up comedy night at my local bar. You know, and I've been performing there the last year and a half, 2 years now. And I had a little comedy bit about that Deflategate thing, and it's the idea, the basic gist of it was it's really sad when the amount of air in a football gets as much, if not more, press coverage than the Super Bowl itself. I thought that was just the weirdest thing. I mean, the post-game show, or the after-game show, whatever the hell they call it, was almost entirely focused on the football itself. Nobody cared about the game. Nobody said anything about the game. It was all about the football. It's just the stupid things people will do. Oh my goodness, pardon me. The stupid things people will do to try to win. Oh, but whatever. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, so I've got kind of an odd departure from my normal bit. You know, my favorite bit of asshole of the week. And that is the fact that I actually don't have an asshole of the week story set just yet. It's sad because I mean, normally when I set up my list of stories that I read off, you know, I try to get one that, you know, I look at it and it's okay. I know this one's going to be asshole of the week, but no, I actually don't have one set yet. So if you'll bear with me a moment, I'm kind of frantically searching for a story that I can use. I guess meanwhile, while I'm searching, because I'm one of those people that's able to multitask, Bellevue, Ohio. A woman says praying behind the wheel caused a crash that injured another woman who was trying to get her grandchildren out of the car. It happened in Bellevue, Ohio in August of 2014. The victim, Pamela Beckham, 50, suffered a broken neck and numerous other injuries. Bellevue police initially believed that the driver, Marilyn Perry, was on her cell phone at the time of the accident, or under the influence of drugs or alcohol. But after a test, but the investigation revealed that she had not been using her phone and her system was clean. Still, police and prosecutors decided she should be charged with vehicular assault. Authorities said Perry blamed the accident on prayer. She said she'd been going through some personal problems and was praying as she drove. occasionally with her head down. Police learned about the prayer defense after Perry and her attorney convinced a Huron County judge to place her in an intervention program and on 3 years probation. The judge also ordered Perry to make up to $10,000 in restitution. Darrell Beckham, Pamela's husband, said, "They don't believe the praying while driving defense. I don't believe that for a second, because church-going people are better people than that. For one, they would have made some sort of attempt to at least see if she was okay or something. They never have." Now personally, I disagree completely with the idea of church-going people are better than that. Going to church doesn't make you a good... Actually, you know what? John Wayne actually said this. John Wayne said it best. Going to church doesn't make you a good person any more than standing in a garage makes you a car. Going to church just means that you're a person who goes to church. That's all that it means. And frankly, that doesn't mean a whole lot. But, well, whatever. Alright. What the hell? I can't be certain, but I think I may have found my Asshole of the Week story. Let's see. Okay. So that file won't load. Gotcha. Alright. So I have to fall back onto this one. It was all over the news a couple months ago. The story of Freddie Gray, a man that was killed by 6 police officers. Well, there's some news. There's something that's coming out of the aftermath of that. A former Baltimore police officer said yesterday that he plans to perform an Al Jolson routine in blackface in order to raise money for the 6 Baltimore officers indicted in the death of Freddie Gray. Oh, by the way, I should mention, I'm using this story as Asshole of the Week, and he kind of fits the bill, but not much. Bobby Berger, whose performances as Jolson created tension with the department in the 1980s, said yesterday that 610 tickets have been sold at $45 each for the November 1st fundraiser in Glen Burnie, Maryland. But the venue involved, Michael's 8th Avenue, says the fundraiser will not be held there. No contract was signed with Mr. Berger. A notice on its website said, Michael's does not condone blackface performances of any kind. Berger said he doesn't believe there's anything racist about his routine. It's coincidence. Berger said about the fact that the entertainer he impersonates wore blackface. There's no racial overtones to this show. Berger, who is 67, has performed the blackface act for decades and was fired from the police force in the 1980s for performing it in his spare time. He was reinstated following an appeal and later retired. His performance at a retirement dinner for a white Baltimore County officer in 1996 prompted a black officers group to protest. Berger said yesterday that he only intended to help the officers in the Gray case. "I want to get these people some money," he said. "I know they need it, and that's the long and short of it." Meanwhile, an attorney for the Baltimore City Fraternal Order of Police says officers don't support the fundraiser and that no money would be accepted from it. They've been put in a pretty bad position without their knowledge, he said of the officers. The president of the Baltimore branch of the NAACP adds that the idea is very distasteful and shows no sensitivity to the family of Freddie Gray. And I agree, you're kind of an asshole for that. I can understand why he wants to help his fellow officers. Well, he's not a cop anymore, but they are. I understand why he wants to help them. He wants to raise money for them, but there are other ways to do it than by, a racist thing. But Anyway, wow, I still got about 10 minutes left. Okay. Try to suck up 10 minutes. How on earth am I going to do that? Well, I know exactly how I'm going to do that, because I've got religious stories. My favorite kinds of stories. What do we got here? Now, you people might remember, a couple episodes I've been on carm.org. It is CARM.org, which is the home page of well-noted, well-known internet apologist Matt Slick. Here's probably about 10 minutes worth of material. Atheists err. Or err. I never knew how to pronounce that word, but it's atheists have an error. They make an error when asking for material evidence to prove God's existence. Atheists often ask for evidence to prove that God exists. They say they want tangible, testable evidence that can be verified via the scientific method. Unfortunately for them, such a request is the wrong approach. Instead, they should look for evidence consistent with a transcendent God. Let me show you why. First of all, the scientific method is a system of learning that consists of observation, hypothesis, experimentation, prediction, and theory. It is based on logic and observations of the material universe and its properties. Second, the scientific method, along with a materialistic worldview, necessarily excludes transcendence, that which exists independent of the universe. Therefore, it can't detect what is outside of the material realm, since it is based on observing things inside the material realm. Third, the Christian worldview proclaims a transcendent God who exists outside of and independent of the material universe. In other words, the Christian God is not dependent upon the material universe or its properties for his existence. Therefore, to ask for scientifically testable material, non-transcendent based evidence for an immaterial transcendent God is the wrong approach because it is a category mistake, explained below. But this is not to say that there are not material evidence is for God's existence. Wow, this guy is really bad at grammar. For example, Jesus walked on the earth 2,000 years ago as a physical man who, according to Scripture, is God in flesh, which was John chapter 1, verse 1, Colossians 2:9, and who rose from the dead, 1 Corinthians 15:1 through 4. He showed Thomas the wounds of his crucifixion ordeal that had led to that death, thereby demonstrating his resurrection. This is material evidence, but of course we don't have access to it. Pardon. A category mistake is an error in logic in which one category of a thing is presented as belonging to another category. For example, to say, "the rock is alive," assigns the category of life to an inanimate object. Another example would be to judge the beauty of a painting based on how much it weighs. That is a category error, since the category of beauty is not determined by the category of weight. So, for the atheist to work from inside his materialistic, non-transcendent worldview and require evidence for the non-material transcendent God, which necessarily exists outside his perceived worldview, risks being a category mistake because it is asking for the non-transcendent evidence of the transcendent in a form that is restricted to testable material form. It is like asking to have a thought placed on a scale. It doesn't work because they are different categories. But some will assert that it is fair to ask for some sort of demonstration that such a transcendent being exists. After all, if there is no evidence of him, how can we know he exists? For that, see what kind of evidence should we expect from a transcendent God. My goodness, that's a whole nother article. I'll read that another time. What is left for the materialist atheist to do? This means that the materialist atheist cannot logically require material-based evidence for the immaterial without committing a category mistake. So he is left with the option of trying to demonstrate that the Christian worldview is internally incoherent. After all, if he cannot show that Christian theism is false, then how can he rationally retain his atheism? But to step into the Christian worldview and attempt to show that it is not true, the atheist must use logic. This requires the use of the laws of logic. The problem is that these laws are transcendent, in that they are not dependent on the physical universe or its properties for their validity. But for the materialist atheist to presuppose the validity of transcendental logical truths in order to argue against a transcendental God is inherently self-contradictory, since he would be using transcendentals to argue against a transcendental God. Furthermore, it would mean that the materialist atheist is presupposing the validity of the transcendental laws of logic without being able to justify them from within his materialistic worldview. To presuppose their validity is to commit the logical fallacy of begging the question. Alright, I'm not even going to read any more of this. I'm just going to... because it hurts my brain to read this. Now, the big thing is, this is what's called TAG, the Transcendental Argument for God. Okay. The biggest problem with TAG is actually self-defeating. That's the real humor of it. For example, where was it? Here we go. After all, if he cannot show that Christian theism is false, then how can he rationally retain his atheism? See, the problem there is he's making the logical fallacy of, well, I mean, he's shifting the burden of proof, really is what he is. Pardon. Because whatever the positive claim happens to be, doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, whoever has the positive claim has the burden of proof. In this case, it is the Christian who has the burden of proof, because they have the positive claim saying that God does exist. Prove it. Okay? It's not up to me, the atheist, to disprove God, because I'm not making any positive claim. I'm not saying God does not exist. I'm saying I don't believe God exists. I don't think God exists. I don't see how it could be possible. But I'm not saying it's not possible. Now, I just want to point out right now, before anybody hears this, because this is a very common Christian argument when they hear people like me saying, I can't prove it, I don't know, they will say things like, okay, well then, if it's not impossible, then it's possible, right? Yes and no. By the strict definition of the opposite of impossible, then yes, it is possible. But it's possible in the same way that unicorns are theoretically possible, but they don't exist. They are not... It is absolutely impossible for you to ever find a unicorn, because they don't exist. But all it is a horse with a friggin' horn on its head. That's it. Theoretically, it's possible. And another thing is, they say, okay, fine, well, God is transcendental. God is outside the universe. Well, if that's what you believe, good for you, but I'm not asking for God's blood. I'm not asking for a tissue sample of God's. I just want to see proof. It's this. I want to see the burning bush. I want to see a man walk up to a mountaintop and come down with 2 stone tablets with words carved on them. That's what I want to see. You give me that proof, and you can absolutely prove that a man went up top of the mountain, came down with stone tablets, and you can prove that he himself did not carve them, that it was a deity that carved them, I'll believe you. But until then, I'm sorry, but there's no reason to believe in fairy tales. Anyway, this has been Brain Power as usual. The next show will be when? The next show will be Sunday, August 2nd. Alrighty, and as usual, if you have a story you'd like covered here or a question you'd like answered, send me a message on Twitter at BrainPowerUp. Use the hashtag BrainPowerUp. Like the group at facebook.com/BrainPowerOnline or visit the website at brainpoweronline.webs.com.